So, a new year means a new Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, and you know I'm all about the MCU, so let's do this. Captain Marvel is the 21st film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the first film in the franchise to be female-led. The movie focuses on a Kree soldier played by Brie Larson, who is part of basically the SEAL Team 6 of the Kree Star Force. During a mission with Star Force, she suddenly finds herself stranded on Earth in the year 1995, which I imagine is a more simple time in the MCU before that. So she's on Earth, she comes across a younger Nick Fury, who at this point is Agent Fury instead of Director Fury, but she soon finds out little by little that she may have been from Earth this whole time and had a life on Earth before she became a Kree soldier. So ever since the Marvel event from 5 years ago where they announced all the Phase 3 movies, I was excited for Black Panther, the final 2 Avengers films, and Captain Marvel. I know a little bit about the character of Carol Danvers, mainly from the Earth's Mightiest Heroes cartoon, but I haven't seen many episodes of her in that show to really get a sense of who the character is. And plus, in that show she goes by the name of Miss Marvel, not Captain Marvel. So when it comes to Carol Danvers as Captain Marvel, I would imagine there are differences between her and when she's Miss Marvel. But that's what's so great about these comic book movies, especially within the MCU, is that they really do give time to their main heroes to where I get to know them and end up liking these characters. Even characters that I thought could never really work, like Ant-Man, or characters that I literally knew nothing about, like Doctor Strange, or I guess most of the MCU heroes before they were made mainstream. So it seemed like the perfect opportunity to introduce Carol Danvers to me. So I went into this movie with the best of intentions. I do like the trailers, although I will admit that second trailer kind of it doesn't hold up, especially the "I'm not going to fight your war, I'm going to end it" line, which I'll just say right now, that line's not in the movie, so if you're worried about that, don't. But then also there was a lot of controversy surrounding this movie, which I'm just going to pretend doesn't exist because the controversy surrounding Captain Marvel is so stupid that it might as well be non-existent. And I'll just cut to the chase right now and saying I really like this movie. I don't love Captain Marvel, which I guess could be considered a disappointment, and it's not even among the top tier of Marvel movies. It's probably more middle of the road, which doesn't really say much, because I really like all the Marvel movies, and their worst movie is probably 3 out of 5 stars, maybe 2.5, but still not terrible or even bad. So what works about Captain Marvel for me? Well, for one, just as I was talking about, the main character. I really dug Carol Danvers, and I liked how Brie Larson played this character. Again, I haven't seen enough of Earth's Mightiest Heroes to really get a sense of who Carol is, but within this movie, she has a very sassy personality. She's confident, she's tough, but she's also very likable. I found myself really digging Carol Danvers as a character, and that's the biggest thing with me with any movie, really, is that the story can be as basic as possible. It could even be predictable. But how are the characters? And I talked about this in my series of Godzilla reviews last year. If the character has a good personality and is even likable, even if there's not a whole lot of depth to that character, I'll still like them. And that's how I feel about Carol Danvers. She gets plenty of character development to where there's a lot to know about her, and the way this movie plays out in terms of telling the origin is very clever. It's like Deadpool if it was less comedic, and it's a nice way to kind of spin things around from the typical routine of how we tell origin stories for comic book heroes. And I also really like the chemistry that she has with a lot of the other characters, particularly with Nick Fury, once again played by Samuel L. Jackson, and probably more than Winter Soldier. This is the most fun that I think Samuel L. Jackson has with the character of Nick Fury, because he's much younger, he's an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., he's not super strict or authoritative as he is when he's Director Fury. That's not to say that Nick Fury in this movie is bumbling or incompetent. He's still very good at his job, but I think this is the one where Samuel L. Jackson gets to let loose a little bit. And I also gotta say the de-aging effect between him and Clark Gregg is seamless. Like, they really have this technology down to a science. I remember back in the day of Tron Legacy, or hell, 10 years ago with Terminator Salvation, where we got CGI Arnold Schwarzenegger, it looked fake, and young Jeff Bridges in Tron Legacy just didn't work well either. But with all the Phase 3 movies where they do the de-aging technology, with Robert Downey Jr. in Civil War, Kurt Russell in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Michelle Pfeiffer in Ant-Man and the Wasp, they've really come a long way. And seeing this movie from beginning to end, where Nick Fury and Coulson are completely de-aged throughout, I was never taken out of the movie at any point. I just thought to myself, yeah, that's a younger Samuel L. Jackson and a younger Clark Gregg, and I totally believe it. Another character in this movie that I really liked was the Skrull Talos, played by Ben Mendelsohn. And I actually won't say much about his character because they do some stuff with him that I actually found pretty surprising. But I just will say that Ben Mendelsohn was one of the highlights of the movie. With all of your supporting cast members, I honestly didn't expect Ben Mendelsohn to be the big scene stealer that he ended up being. And I liked him a lot. I didn't think there were any weak performances in this movie, and the rest of the supporting cast, from Lashana Lynch, Jude Law, and Annette Bening, all came to work and did a really good job. And of course the rest of the technical stuff is great as well. Outside the de-aging effect, the rest of the CGI itself is really good. The practical makeup on the Skrulls looks damn good. There's so much detail in those characters. The score itself is really good. It kind of reminds me of Thor Ragnarok in a way, where it has some techno aspects to it, but still has an orchestral feel. And speaking of Thor Ragnarok, there are a lot of points in this movie where it gets weird. It doesn't get as weird as it does in Thor Ragnarok. However, given the fact that this movie is just as much a Earthbound film as it is a cosmic one, I think it's a nice balance between weird and grounded. I mean, Infinity War already did a great job with that already, but that was a result of mixing all these characters together for the first time. This is the introduction to a character who's mixed in both Earth and the cosmic realm, and I think it's a very nice balance. Just imagine if you mixed Guardians of the Galaxy with Captain America the First Avenger. And a lot of this movie really did remind me of the first Avenger, for better and actually for worse, and I'll actually get into that right now. One of the issues that I had with Captain Marvel kind of reminded me of the first Avenger, where it starts off fine. I didn't think it had the strongest opening for one of these movies, and it does take a little time to get things going. And when the movie starts, when we get into our first big action scene, or a couple of action scenes, wow, are they underwhelming. Like, the action scenes at the beginning of the movie just feel kind of sloppy. I will say I was never bored throughout the movie. There's still a sense of intrigue on what's going on with Carol Danvers, but it just wasn't as strong as the rest of the movie. I think once Carol and Nick Fury meet each other for the first time and start to go on this adventure together, it starts to pick up, and the third act of the movie is really good. I will forgive a very slow and kinda okay opening if you finish off the movie with a bang. But getting back to some of the other problems I had with the movie, it is very predictable. I mean, it's not a huge criticism for me, but there just aren't any huge jaw-dropping surprises in terms of how this movie plays into the rest of the MCU. I mean, it is a prequel, so things just kind of have to happen in order to make sense within the future of the series. And certain nods to events that happen later on in the MCU, or little things in this movie that result in something else happening in a future movie, feel very natural. I watch it and go, I see that making sense. But sometimes there are some nods that are just so much a wink to the audience that it just felt out of place. And there were just a few elements in this movie where it's like, you know, I didn't really care to know that, but okay, it's not going to detract from my enjoyment of this movie. So I'll wrap things up right now. With 21 movies, I really feel like that this is either your thing or it's not. If you're not a huge diehard fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, then I still think it's worth checking out, but it's probably not going to be one of the top tier movies. It's no Civil War, it's no Black Panther, it's no Iron Man, but it's not a bad movie, not in the slightest at all. I'd still say it's worth seeing in your lifetime. It has its issues, and some of them are very glaring issues. I think the pros outweigh the cons, and it's an enjoyable movie. Again, it might not be one of the top tier MCU movies, and to be honest, I don't think it's going to have as big of an impact as Wonder Woman did. For one, that movie had the advantage of being the first good female-led superhero movie. But still, this is very good, very fun. I cannot wait to see what Marvel has in store for Carol in the future and how she plays into Endgame. Which again, make sure you stay for the mid-credit scene and the end credit scene. And also, this movie has a very loving tribute to Stan Lee as the movie opens. So definitely make sure you check that out. So yeah, I recommend Captain Marvel a lot. And that's my review for Captain Marvel. I will be doing a spoiler review for this movie, but it's going to be a part of my series of reviews where I re-review the entire MCU in chronological order. So I'm going to plan to put out the first video on Friday, the day Captain Marvel actually comes out, and that will be for Captain America the First Avenger, with my spoiler review for Captain Marvel following on Sunday or Monday. That way you get a whole weekend to check the movie out so you can be prepped for spoilers. Because I definitely have a lot more to say about this movie, and I honestly can't wait to see it a second time. But first I want to hear what you guys have to say about this movie. If you've seen it, what'd you think? Where does this rank in terms of the MCU for you? How does this compare to Wonder Woman in your opinion? Let me know below, and until next time, I hope you enjoyed this review. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and of course leave a comment. Don't forget to support my Patreon page, follow me on social media, and until next time, this is the Real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.